Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you guys for joining me again. My name is Wilkie and I'm here with my first For Honor guide, and this video is going to be about fundamentals of the game. And I'm saying specifically fundamentals and not basics. I'm not going to talk about light attacks and heavy attacks and such as, at least not in particular, because I think this is a basic video and more appropriate in an actual specific hero video, but this is a general video about fundamental techniques and things I'm pretty sure you should know or have to know in order to be a very, very good For Honor player and to be successful in future duels. So the first thing, before we actually talk about fundamentals, here's a quick thing. For the fighting game community, the term lab or going to the lab should be very common. Maybe a lot of you don't know what that is, and basically going to the lab means you're going into sort of like a training mode or an area where you can test out things without limitations and having, only taking 5 hits and then dying. Basically, if you're in the play screen in the main menu, what you do is you click on custom match, don't click on launch yet. Go to duel, game mode, set it to duel. For maps, I usually pick Canyon. Any other map, really, what you're liking, it doesn't really matter which map you take, just take the one you like. Rules, set the rounds to 99, set the round timer to 10 minutes, and disable gear stats because we're focusing on 1v1s and 2v2s. Then for bots, if you have any preference you want to play against, obviously you can pick them. I usually prefer bot level 2, but that's really personal choice. And probably one of the most vital options is to, in the options menu, turn off the damage so that you basically don't take damage. There is a bit of a bug there, and I'm pretty sure it's just something Ubisoft has overlooked. Is because bleeding, such as Nobushi's or Peacekeeper's bleed, will still deal damage and eventually kill you, but yeah, it's not really a big deal. And then you basically just launch, and I'm not going to load in because we're going to dive straight into what the lab is going to be like. But basically this is how you enter the lab, and you can choose whatever you want to play, and you can pick whatever enemy you want to play against, also the level. I recommend practicing with level 2 bots if you're learning new mechanics, and then crank up the difficulty to level 3. Keep in mind level 3 is a bit mean at some occasions, but it's nonetheless very, very good training indeed. Anyway, let's start with the first fundamental, or at least the first thing I think is a very fundamental technique. So, the first fundamental I want to talk about is parrying, or the art of parrying. You might have learned about how parries work already, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people still kind of have trouble to exactly understand how it works and what it basically does and what follow-up options you basically have. So first off, parrying is timing your heavy attack precisely towards your enemy heavy or whatever attack the enemy is throwing at you in order to not only block the attack but also parry it. And there are a few key advantages which are very, very good, and there's plenty of reason why you should learn to parry as quickly as possible. First off, it's gonna cost the enemy more stamina. That was a successful parry. If you parry successfully, you will see that the enemy will consume more stamina and gets thrown off balance. So basically, one of the main pluses of actually parrying is, first off, you're gonna make the enemy lose more stamina than they normally would. The other thing is, it opens them for punishment, and quite severe punishment. Like, for example, you can Guardbreak after a successful parry, and the Guardbreak is going to be true, so it's not going to be able to be countered. Another thing is that you might have seen that because the enemy tumbled there. I'm going to try and show you that again. If the enemy is low on HP, on stamina, my bad, and you parry them, then instead of tumbling back, they will actually fall to the floor, basically opening them up for very, very heavy and slow attacks, which is really, really powerful and quite scary if you have a good follow-up and you pay attention to the enemy stamina bar. So basically that's all really there is to parrying. All you gotta do is either predict the enemy or get cat-like reflexes. You basically only have these two options, and then just time your heavy attack to match the opponent's attack, and you can parry light attacks, heavy attacks, you can even parry so-called unblockable attacks, and these unblockable attacks are usually indicated by orange-ish glow, and the character usually screaming something. I'm not sure if I can get the Kensei to show me that. I'll probably just edit it later to show you what I mean. Keep in mind though, certain attacks are not parryable as well, so not only are they not unblockable, but stuff like grabs, for example, you cannot parry them. So keep that in mind, that parrying is not an like all-around weapon that works against everything. There are still a few moves that cannot be parried, so keep an eye out on that and don't just turtle and wait for the enemy attack, because that will eventually get you killed. This is all about parrying, really. Basically, the easiest way is to go into the lab, as I showed you in the first part of the video, and just spend like half an hour maybe there, and just time your right clicks really with the enemy. It takes a bit of time to get used to, especially in the heat of battle, so don't expect to get parrying down in the very first 2 minutes of playing the game, but don't worry, it's very, very rewarding, and it's super fun to do so. And like I said, guard breaks after that are true, and can be used to inflict quite massive damage. Here's a footage of me parrying an otherwise unblockable attack, which is what I mentioned earlier with the orange-ish attack. It works on Raiders, Orange Swing as well, but keep in mind some orange or charge moves, whatever, are still unparryable as well. So let's take a look at the second fundamental mechanic, which is called feinting, or to avoid any confusion, if you go to the controls and key mappings, as I told you, I'm using keyboard and mouse, it's called cancel heavy attack. The default setup is E. I'm not sure what the gamepad layout is, so for those of you who are playing the game with a gamepad, this is the button you're looking for in order to cancel heavy attacks, or so-called feints. And basically what this does, if you just go for a heavy attack, it doesn't matter which one, like overhead, left or right, and by pressing E during the startup, you can see that you like start the motion and you try to prepare yourself to deliver the blow, but then you just see this little grayish, whitish afterglow. That pretty much tells you that you canceled the move. This is a very, very tricky mechanic to use because it has pros and cons. The probably very obvious con is it still is gonna use some stamina, and you can see that it even takes more stamina than just the base version. The second problem with that is the enemy has to react to the bait the way you want him to react, which is a bit of a trade-off. Feints have multiple uses. Obviously for Warden, top feints are very, very good because they can very much punish people for that. But since we talked about parries in the first segment, or the second I guess in the video, as a first fundamental, where I taught you that in order to parry a blow, you have to use your heavy attack at the right moment. So now, let's say I'm gonna go for a top heavy, and the enemy sees it and he wants to parry my attack. So in order to parry, his answer is gonna be a top heavy from his side. But if I feint it, then he will just try to strike me instead because there's nothing to parry. And in that regard, I can predict that he will react to my top attack attempt, and then he will instead try to parry it. Obviously not parry because no attack was delivered, and then I can parry in return. This sounds a bit very confusing, I know. So what basically happened is I went for the top feint, he fell for it, he took my bait, and I countered it. And pretty much exactly immediately afterwards, I did it again, and he fell for it again, but it just blew it. So we're back in the lab for, at least for now, in this guide video, the last fundamental mechanic, which is not so much a mechanic, it's more of a knowledge thing. And that knowledge thing is basically what I call true guard breaks, or unblockable guard breaks. Now, you know that if you just go ahead and guard break some guy, or like, well, let me just get this guy dealt with. If I just guard break, never mind, he doesn't. Why the hell does he not? If I guard break, this is usually what the result is going to be like. That the people will just counter your guard break with a guard break of their own, or rather, they will just break it, or just like I did. So normal guard breaks are, in most cases, not going to be very effective against experienced players. There is, of course, the chance of them whiffing their counter because they're under pressure, low HP, or very, very poor positioning, or whatever. So there can be multiple occasions where normal guard breaks will actually do the trick. But, as I said in the parrying section already, there are ways to land true guard breaks, or guard breaks that will not be able to will not allow the enemy to counter them. The first one I already showed it, but I'm just gonna go for it again, is after a parry. after a successful parry, and the enemy is within range. Not like this. There we go, this should be working. Why the hell can he counter that? Okay, this one was good. So like I said, range is important and speed. This is an uncounterable Guardbreak. So if you parry the enemy while that was slow, then the Guardbreak follow-up, and it has to be the follow-up. If you have too much time in between or you have to move, it'll count as a normal Guardbreak. So pay attention to the distance between you and your enemy. So you have to be relatively close for the Guardbreak to be true afterwards. The following 3 clips will basically elaborate what I was talking about. The first 2 are basically when the enemy dodges sideways or backwards, it doesn't really matter. As long as they don't roll, they are susceptible to another Guardbreak, that is true. The third clip you'll see is basically where the enemy whiffs his own Guardbreak, leaving him open for a true Guardbreak of my own. So this concludes my first For Honor guide. Bear with me that I'm not usually very used to editing videos, but I'll try something new, simply because to show certain things it's probably much better to actually cut out the pieces, and yeah. I still hope you guys enjoyed, and most importantly I hope some of you learned a few of the fundamentals, or I guess you call it advanced mechanics in the game. Keep in mind this is not everything that is in the game. I'm sure there are mechanics we haven't figured out yet. The game is new. We have encountered a couple issues which we will think that will be fixed in the future, so yeah. But I think these mechanics will most likely remain the same. At least from what I've currently seen and played so far. I think those are relatively stable and they don't cause really any of the, well, let's say major problems we currently have in the game. But that's fine. Like I said, once people will get to learn, we will dive deeper into mechanics, and whatever playstyle will evolve, we will see that. So like I said, hopefully you guys learned something from this one. If you have anything else you want to learn, specifically, I don't know, I mostly play Warden right now, so if I make any other guide, it's probably going to be around Warden. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be making general guides, maybe, but I'm not really doing much other than duels, so yeah, maybe I'll change that in the future. Maybe I'll just do the story mode and play through and show you how the story mode looks like. That might be interesting as well. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you guys think, and yeah, hopefully see you guys in the next one.